Okay, so you're in IT, and you want to build a career that doesn't just, last, but one that really thrives, right? You've given us a ton of information to look at, everything from just general advice on IT careers to some really specific strategies on communication, particularly the importance of active listening, how that plays out in meetings with clients, and then how to build those long-term relationships with clients, and then even how to handle things when they get a little bit rocky, those difficult clients and unrealistic demands. So in this deep dive, what we really want to do is pull out those nuggets, the most valuable insights, the things you can really act on, the key understandings that will help you have a really long and successful career in IT. And we don't want to overwhelm you with too much, just the best stuff.
Right.
Let's get into it.
Yeah, I think one of the first things that jumps out from all this material is how multifaceted a sustainable IT career is.
Yeah.
You can't just be good at the technical stuff. There's so many other things. There's a whole kind of ecosystem of skills and approaches that really contribute to long-term success.
That's so true. And so some of those core strategies, and we see these kind of repeated over and over again in the material that we've been given, are really about staying relevant in IT for the long term. And the first one that really comes up over and over again is this idea of continuous learning, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's such a, it's almost like the ground is constantly shifting beneath your feet.
Yeah.
In this industry.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting, the recent data suggests that the IT professionals who dedicate even just like 1 to 2 hours a week to learning new skills see an average salary increase of X% within a year.
Wow.
So it's not about, massive overhauls or anything. Just consistent focused effort makes a really big difference. And as you said, it's about, keeping pace with the new technologies, frameworks, different languages. And I think, the material talks about certifications, things like AWS, Azure, which is essentially, think of it like renting computing power and storage.
Yeah.
Over the internet, and and Cisco, which can be really valuable benchmarks of your expertise.
Right. It's like getting that stamp of approval in a world that's constantly transforming, right?
Exactly.
It's like, okay, you've achieved this level, but knowing that you're going to have to keep going back and getting recertified and leveling up.
Yeah, and it's not just about the formal certifications, right?
Yeah.
The material also talks about investing in online courses, webinars, workshops, all those things. It's really about cultivating that, mindset of ongoing growth.
Yeah, continual development.
Professional evolution. Yeah, exactly.
Professional evolution. I love that.
And then what's equally vital, and perhaps even more so for that sustained success, are what we call soft skills.
Ah, yes. The human side of tech.
Right? Exactly.
Which it feels like sometimes that gets a little bit overshadowed, right?
Yeah, it does. It does.
By all the technical brilliance. But the material is emphasizing communication, problem solving, creativity, even time management. It's crucial. And then leadership skills. I mean, that's going to be huge for career progression.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. If you think about sort of typical career paths, those who can effectively, articulate their ideas, lead teams, tackle complex problems, and not just the glitches.
Right, the technical glitches.
Exactly. Those are the ones who generally, rise in the ranks.
Climb the ladder, yeah.
And I think one really interesting point that the sources bring up is that kind of balance between specialization and versatility.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how that could be a really tricky thing to navigate, right? Because you need that depth of expertise to be really valuable. But if you're too narrowly focused, it feels risky in such a dynamic industry.
It is.
Like, how do you find that sweet spot?
Yeah, I think the sweet spot often involves developing deep expertise in a specific niche.
Okay.
So it could be within, AI.
Yeah.
Which is creating intelligent computer systems, cloud computing, cybersecurity.
Okay.
That's where you can really, establish yourself.
Right.
But then having that broader understanding of other IT domains provides essential context and makes you a much more adaptable and collaborative professional.
Makes a lot of sense. Now, another thing that keeps coming up is the importance of building a strong network. But I imagine it's more than just, racking up LinkedIn connections.
Right. Oh, way more. Yeah, way more.
What does it actually look like?
So I think the material really emphasizes the value of attending, tech meetups, conferences, even hackathons.
Yeah.
These offer opportunities for genuine interaction with your peers, potential mentors
Yeah.
and thought leaders in the field. And yes, LinkedIn is a really powerful tool for connecting and staying informed. But those in-person interactions, they're just invaluable for forging real relationships and discovering those unexpected opportunities. You can't really replicate, that spontaneous hallway conversation.
Yeah, the water cooler chat.
Exactly. Or the ID exchange online. Can you?
No, you really can't. And you never know, who you might meet or what idea might spark just by being present. And speaking of which, one of the things that the material talks about is embracing challenges, which, stepping outside of your comfort zone, it's not always the most comfortable thing, is it?
No, not at all. Not at all.
But it can be so rewarding, right?
It can. And it's funny, that feeling of being challenged often precedes the most significant leaps,
yes,
in your development. Taking on complex projects, even if they seem daunting at first, allows you to showcase your capabilities, gain invaluable experience, and, even if things don't go perfectly the first time.
Yeah.
They often don't, right?
Right.
Those so-called failures can become powerful learning opportunities.
Huge learning opportunities.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then it's interesting to see the material really emphasizes contributing to the community and this idea that it's not just about what you can get, but also what you can give back, right? Whether that's writing blogs, creating tutorials, contributing to open source projects, or mentoring others. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is that, there's a real reciprocity to that community involvement.
Right.
By sharing your knowledge, your expertise, you solidify your own understanding.
Right.
You build your reputation within the field. For instance, contributing to an open source project can expose your skills to a wider audience, potentially lead to unexpected collaborations, or opportunities. And mentoring, in particular, I think offers profound benefits.
Yeah, both for the mentor and the person being mentored.
The mentee.
The mentee, yes.
Yeah, it's a two-way street for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got to talk about something that is so vital, especially in such a demanding field, and that is work-life balance.
Yes.
The sources are very clear. Burnout is a huge risk in IT. Yeah. It is. And it's, it's not just feeling tired. It's, prolonged stress and burnout can have a really negative impact on your physical and mental health, your productivity, your overall job satisfaction.
Yeah.
So setting healthy boundaries between work and personal life.
Right.
And actively prioritizing your well-being, whether it's through, exercise, hobbies, quality time with loved ones. These things are not luxuries. They're essential. Absolutely essential for long-term sustainability.
Yeah.
And even, they boost your effectiveness when you're working.
Right. So important. And then as technology becomes more integrated and deeper into every aspect of our lives, it feels like those ethical considerations become so important, right?
Yeah.
The material is really emphasizing staying ethical, especially when it comes to data privacy, intellectual property, and then responsible coding practices. I mean, that feels like such a weight.
Yeah. And it raises an important point, I think, about, responsibility.
Yeah.
That comes with working in this field.
Yeah.
Because you often have access to very sensitive information.
Yeah.
You have the power to develop these technologies that have a significant impact on people's lives,
Yeah.
So adhering to high ethical standards, I think, is fundamental for maintaining trust and integrity within the industry.
With the users,
And with the users of technology.
Yeah, absolutely. And given the constant change in IT, being resilient to change feels almost like a superpower. Industries evolve, companies pivot, technologies emerge and fade away. I mean, how do you even keep up?
I think adaptability is key, and the material really stresses the importance of being open to lifelong learning.
Yeah.
And even considering career shifts if necessary, It's about being able to embrace new technologies.
Yeah.
Continuously updating your skill set.
Yeah.
That's what will allow you to remain relevant.
To stay valuable.
And valuable in the long run.
Yeah. And then for those in more hands-on technical roles, one of the things that came up was building a portfolio, right? And I mean, it's one thing to say you can do something, it's another thing to show it, right?
It is.
So how important is that?
Really important, I think. A well-curated portfolio. Showcasing your past projects, achievements, provides tangible evidence of your skills and abilities, which is incredibly valuable when you're seeking new opportunities or demonstrating your capabilities to clients.
Yeah, makes sense. So to sum up this kind of foundational part, it sounds like building a long and thriving IT career is about way more than just technical brilliance, right? It's holistic. It's this, ongoing commitment to continuous learning. It's about those indispensable soft skills. It's about strategic specialization. But it's also about building those meaningful connections, embracing challenges as opportunities to grow, giving back to the community, taking care of your well-being, holding yourself to those high ethical standards, being adaptable, and then really showcasing your accomplishments. And at its core, it feels like it requires a certain mindset, like a curious nature and a genuine passion for solving problems.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now let's dive into a specific soft skill that the sources really emphasize over and over again.
Okay.
And that is mastering communication skills. What do we have to know about that?
This is such a pivotal area. And I think the sources rightly distinguish between technical communication and non-technical communication. You need to be proficient at both.
Right.
To truly excel.
Right. So it's one thing to be able to articulate complex technical concepts to your peers, to other experts, but then you also need to be able to translate those concepts into clear, understandable language.
Yes.
For non-technical stakeholders, right? Whether those are clients or colleagues in different departments.
Right. Absolutely.
And then on the flip side of that, being able to clearly convey general ideas, project goals, user needs, that's all super important too.
It is, yeah. And at the very heart of effective communication lies active listening.
Oh, yes.
And the sources describe this beautifully. It's about fully concentrating on the speaker, showing genuine engagement, and responding thoughtfully.
Right.
To ensure that mutual understanding is there.
It sounds simple, but I imagine that's actually quite a challenge to do that consistently.
Oh, it is.
Especially when, we're all juggling so many different things where you have your own thoughts that you're eager to jump in and share.
Exactly, yeah. Right. It demands conscious effort.
Yeah.
And consistent practice.
So true. Now, moving on from there, written skills. I mean, in the IT field, you are constantly writing emails, reports, technical documentation. It goes on and on. So that's got to be really important to get right.
Yeah. And, clear, concise professional writing can make such a huge difference in how your ideas are received. And the material even suggests, leveraging tools like Grammarly, for example, to refine your work.
Yeah.
And being really mindful of unnecessary technical jargon.
Right.
It's about making your written communication as effective and as easily digestible as possible.
Yeah, because no one wants to wade through pages of jargon that they don't even understand.
No, exactly.
Yeah. And then, of course, participating effectively in meetings. I mean, that's crucial, especially in these collaborative environments. Right, what do we have to keep in mind there?
Well, I think speaking with confidence and clarity.
Okay.
Preparing your key points in advance.
Yeah.
Proactively contributing your ideas. These are all essential for productive discussions.
Right.
And ensuring that your voice is heard.
So you're not just a wallflower sitting in the back. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're actively engaged. Yeah. And then we can't forget about presentation skills.
Right. Whether you're presenting a project update to a client or your findings to your team, being able to create really well-structured and visually engaging slides and to deliver those with confidence, that's got to be so valuable.
Oh, it really is. Yeah. And, something that the sources really highlight is that, seeking feedback.
Okay.
And reflecting on your own communication style is really important.
Right.
It's about being open to that constructive criticism and continuously striving to improve based on observations from, your colleagues, mentors, even your own self-assessment.
Right. So kind of taking that step back and going, okay, how did that go?
Exactly.
What could I do better next time? Yeah.
Yeah. Requires a good dose of self-awareness.
For sure. And then there's that human element of practicing empathy, right? Truly understanding your audience's perspective, their needs, their concerns, and then tailoring your approach accordingly.
Yeah. And empathy is, fundamental for building rapport, for building trust.
Yeah.
It enables you to communicate in a way that resonates.
Yeah.
And effectively addresses their their specific needs and concerns.
Yeah, you're really speaking their language, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And meeting them where they are. Now, the sources also mention leveraging networking opportunities to practice your communication skills in different settings.
Right. Yeah.
So, it's not just about, going to industry events and meetups to make connections, but it's also, really sharpening those skills, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
In a different context. And I thought it was really interesting, this idea of developing storytelling skills in IT. It doesn't seem like the most obvious pairing, but I can see how it would be really useful.
Yeah, and I think what's compelling here is that the art of storytelling can really transform even complex technical concepts into much more engaging and relatable narratives.
Yeah.
Particularly when you're, illustrating how a particular solution solved a real world problem. Helps people connect with, the why behind the what.
Totally, yeah. Instead of just getting bogged down in the details, they can really draw people in with that narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And then, of course, we can't forget, in this world of, remote work, the efficient use of collaboration tools, platforms like Slack, Microsoft Teams, Jira, which helps with project tracking. Those are so essential for clear communication. Right?
Yeah, they are. They're just absolutely crucial for, clear, concise, focused communication to maintain that team productivity and to avoid any misunderstandings.
For sure. And the material even gives kind of some extra tips. Things like enrolling in communication workshops, watching webinars on public speaking, even role play, explaining technical concepts to a non-technical audience. I mean, it really does feel like an ongoing commitment.
Yeah, it does,
to hone those skills, right?
It does.
Yeah. All right. So it's clear that communication in IT is multifaceted. It really requires this ongoing attention and dedication. But let's zoom in even closer on one of the foundational components of communication, active listening.
Okay.
So remind us, what is active listening at its core?
So at its core, the sources define active listening as being fully present and focused on what the other person is saying, demonstrating your engagement both verbally and non-verbally, and responding thoughtfully to what you've heard. It's truly the cornerstone of strong working relationships.
It really is. And there's specific techniques that we can use, to make sure that we are doing it effectively.
Yes.
And it starts with something that feels so simple, but it's really important. Maintaining eye contact.
Yeah.
Or in a virtual meeting, keeping your attention focused on the screen.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
What does that tell the other person?
Those nonverbal cues really signal that you're present, you're engaged in the conversation. And then equally crucial is actively minimizing distractions.
Oh, that's a tough one.
It is. It is.
What are some tips for that?
Putting your phone out of sight.
Okay.
Silencing those notifications.
Yeah.
Finding, a quiet space if you can where you can focus.
Cleaning that space,
without interruption. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Whether it's physical or mental, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. To be able to really absorb what's being communicated and then demonstrating your interest, right? So that's using those verbal cues. Things like, oh, I see, or that's interesting, right? And then those nonverbal cues, nodding your head.
Yeah.
Keeping an open posture. What do those do?
Those small acknowledgments encourage the speaker to continue. They show that you're following their train of thought. And then when something isn't entirely clear, the sources emphasize the importance of asking clarifying questions.
Oh, yeah. So important.
Yeah.
So what are some examples of those clarifying questions?
This could be something as simple as, could you elaborate on that particular point? What did you mean by, whatever it might be?
Right. And that can it just avoids those misunderstandings down the line.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. So smart. And then there's this really great technique that I've found so useful, paraphrasing and summarizing what the speaker has said. Right. And why is that so powerful?
This is a very effective way to confirm your understanding.
Yeah.
And ensure that everyone involved has the same interpretation.
Right, because you might be hearing one thing. They might be saying another. And this is just a really great way to sort of get everyone on the same page.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are some phrases you can use for that?
So if I understand you correctly, you're saying.
Yeah.
Or to summarize, your key point is, these types of things.
Right. And that's so helpful because it also forces you to actually process what they said instead of just letting it go in one ear and out the other.
It does, yeah.
Now, another really important aspect of active listening is not interrupting. Why is that so crucial?
I think it shows respect for the speaker's thoughts. And it allows them to fully articulate their ideas without feeling cut off.
Yeah, because we've all been there where we're trying to get something out and someone keeps jumping in, and it's so frustrating.
It is, yeah. And that brief pause after they finish speaking can be really valuable, both for the speaker to ensure they fully express themselves and for you to process what they've said.
Totally.
Before formulating your response.
Yeah. Okay, and then empathy, right? Making a real effort to understand their emotions, their perspective, even if you don't necessarily share their viewpoint. Right.
Yeah.
So what's an example of how you can show that you're being empathetic?
So you could just simply acknowledge, I can see why that would be a concern.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, showing that you're trying to see it from their side, even if you don't fully get it.
Right, exactly.
And then when it is your turn to speak, giving constructive feedback. That's got to be done in a respectful and helpful way.
Absolutely, yeah.
What are some things to keep in mind for that?
Well, I think the focus should always be on collaboration.
Yeah.
And working together towards solutions.
Right.
Rather than simply pointing out flaws or disagreeing.
Right. So being solution oriented.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. And then for those more complex discussions or lengthy discussions, taking notes can be so useful.
It can.
Right. Why is that so important?
It helps you stay focused. Right. You know, it helps you recall those important details later. And it just ensures that you don't miss any key information.
Right, because it's easy to just zone out.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And then finally, the material reminds us to be patient and not rush the conversation. Right. Why is that?
Allowing the speaker, the time they need to fully express their thoughts. It's such a crucial element of respectful communication.
Yeah, it really is. So it all comes back to that idea that active listening is a skill. It takes practice. The more you do it, the better you'll get.
It does, yeah.
And the benefits go way beyond just clearer communication, right? It builds trust, fosters stronger relationships, and ultimately leads to more effective collaboration. Let's talk about a specific context where active listening is super critical, and that is active listening in client meetings.
Okay.
What changes when you're sitting down with a client?
I think, the stakes are just much higher, In client meetings, active listening is not just good practice.
Right.
It's absolutely crucial for understanding the client's needs.
Yeah.
Building that strong foundation of trust.
Yeah.
And ultimately achieving those successful outcomes for both parties.
Totally. So the sources talk about the things you do before the meeting, during the meeting, and then after the meeting. So let's break those down one by one.
Okay.
Starting with before the meeting even starts, right? What do you have to do to get ready?
So the sources highlight several important steps to take, even before the meeting.
Okay.
It's not just about showing up. Preparation is key. So reviewing the meeting agenda, familiarizing yourself with the client's background, their business, understanding their objectives, any potential concerns, having your preferred method for note-taking readily available.
Okay, so you come prepared.
Yeah, exactly.
Pen and paper or your laptop, whatever works for you, you got it.
You got it, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think perhaps most importantly, setting the right mindset.
Okay.
Approaching the meeting with genuine curiosity and a collaborative spirit.
So you're not coming in with your own agenda.